So welcome to Past, Present, Future, the Full Circle podcast. On this podcast, we will be speaking to artists, managers, label owners, stylists, really anyone involved within the UK music and rap industry. The aim is to give you a full circle overview on their life, their past, their present, and obviously their future.
Yeah.
Past, Present, Future, Ep.5, which sounds absolutely crazy to me. I'm really excited for today's episode, as I always am, but here we have the CEO of our sponsor, the 1994 Collective, so it's going to be an incredible conversation. It'd be great for you to introduce yourself, Chloe, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sure. Okay, cool. So I'm Chloe, Chloe Mykel. I have a company called 1994 Collective, and happy to be sponsoring this podcast. Proper gassed about it. But 1994 is a collective in the music industry. So we cover a whole host of things: PR, marketing. We do like creative consultancy. Loads of different things. If you want to know more, obviously just check out our website. But
100%. And hopefully you've seen the little intro that we give by now, so you have a rough idea of what's going on. But I did want to start the podcast, the conversation off, as I kind of always do, and to track back to your childhood, and really it'd be great to understand kind of where you grew up and the sorts of things that you were exposed to, and then we can kind of delve into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so where I grew up. Okay, so I'm from Essex, Essex in the UK, and I wasn't born where I grew up. So I was born in Ilford. If anyone knows where that is. Lived there till I was 3, and then I moved to like a small town in Essex, really quiet. A lot of elderly people lived there. So my childhood was really quiet and just really pleasant, I guess. I went to school in the same kind of town, really quiet, and my main memories from my childhood are kind of music. My dad is just like a huge music fanatic. Like I wouldn't even say he's like a music lover, like he's a fanatic, like he's actually a music fanatic. So I was always brought up around like all different genres. He listened to everything, and that's what I've always kind of admired about him, is that, you know, he wouldn't rule something out just because it was a certain genre. He would just get involved. Like, it's, you know, there's a lot of the music I listen to that's kind of like rap or whatever, that I would think, oh, my dad probably wouldn't like that, but he like loves it, and he
embraces everything.
He just embraces everything, but especially when it comes to music. So a big part of me growing up was my dad just playing me loads of music and just being surrounded by music. So
what did you resonate the most with? You mentioned that he had a variety of different music. What did you resonate the most with when you were growing up?
That's a good question. So when I was growing up, which is so mad because the kind of field or genre I'd say that I'm kind of in now is probably more urban and you know, like more hip hop, R&B type of vibe. But me personally, I do listen to everything. But growing up, I really gravitated towards like indie rock. Like I used to love like heavy metal. Like when I was 13, I was going to like heavy metal gigs. Like I got punched in my mouth.
No.
I was like bleeding, everything.
What gig was that?
That was literally, they were like nobodies. They were like some local band. Yeah, it wasn't anyone big, but I used to go and support like a lot of like the local talent in my area. But like my idol was Kurt Cobain. Like I loved him. I had to put a poster of him like above my bed. Like I loved Nirvana. Like, so it's weird because I really grew up on a lot of kind of like indie rock kind of vibes. The Beatles, I love the Beatles. But then I feel like that kind of shaped my ear in terms of like, as my dad is, he's very open. So having grown up on that music, it's like, weirdly, I can see the influence that a lot of that music has actually had on other genres as well that you wouldn't really think. But and then obviously as I got older, I remember when I probably started getting into like grime and stuff, and I was like, okay, like I'm liking this, like, you know, and I discovered Skepta and like all these people. But I'd say in the beginning it was a lot of kind of like more we used to call it emo back in the day.
Yeah.
Emo music. But
I mean,
yeah.
that's interesting because, like you say, even though that might not be the lane that you're in at the moment, and obviously we'll go on to talk about that later on in the podcast, it sounds like it almost trained your ear for the diversity that you still look to push on today. So
definitely,
it's interesting to understand what in the early years affects your later life and your present moment.
Yeah.
You briefly touched upon kind of family life and stuff like that, but who did you grow up with specifically? What was your household?
So it was literally the four of us, the gang, my dad, my mum and my brother. So my dad was like the music head. My mum, never really into music, but again, I learnt a lot from her because she's from the Caribbean. So you would think, you know, she'd be gravitating more toward, you know, reggae and like a lot more of that kind of Caribbean sound. But she actually loves like Coldplay and like U2 and like just random music. So both my parents kind of, I looked up to them in a music sense because they would just listen to anything and just embrace anything. And then with my brother, a lot of people don't know he actually does music, so he's an artist. So he's called Young M. Go check him out. But he's not released music for like about 2 years now. So you know, I've not really had the chance to speak about him since I've kind of been doing like all the 1994 stuff. But he is loading, he's recording music. So that's another thing. Like when my brother started getting into music, I kind of felt like, oh, okay, like this is a good opportunity for me to kind of.
Yeah, I read that you became his manager.
Yeah, so I started out in the industry by just becoming his manager. Yeah, it's nice because you know he's my brother. Like I love him and I've got his best interest. So it was a good first kind of project to have because I was really like invested. But yeah, like just music literally like from young, like that's all I can remember.
That's super interesting. And I mean, I was interested as well. So school life. You mentioned that where you grew up in Essex, it was very quiet and stuff like that. But how was school life? It
was just like I'm so blessed that I don't have any kind of bad experiences in school. Like, you know, I was never, you know, I think sometimes, you know, kids can be just crazy and, you know, you can experience bullying and all these things, but never like, and even as far as saying like where I grew up was like predominantly white. And obviously I was like literally one of I can only really remember one other like mixed race girl in my year, and there was barely any black kids. So like I was very much the minority in my school, but I never ever felt like different. Like I had a really strong group of friends. Like it was weird that people almost kind of like gravitated towards me more because I kind of looked a bit different. Do you know what I mean? And people would be like, "Oh my god, your hair's curly," and like they'd be really like intrigued by me.
How did that make you feel at the time?
I don't know. I didn't really think much of it. It was just, I don't know, when you're a kid, you don't really like. But now I look back and I do realise how blessed I was because, you know, that's not normally the case. It's like normally when you're the minority, it's like people will kind of make you feel like an outcast because you're different. But I was never made to feel like that as a child. And like I say, all of my friends who I was friends with at school, like my close group of friends, that we're still best friends now. So my childhood was like, I couldn't have asked for a better childhood, really.
Really? Okay. So when would you say, I mean, a lot of what I like about this podcast is we get people on here and we kind of, I guess, understand so what they've been through and then how they've come out the other side. And I think that that's really powerful, and the motivation behind that helps people that are listening or watching.
Definitely.
So, I mean, it sounds like the childhood was amazing, which it's great to hear. And essentially, I'm sure it's helped you become the success that you are today. But when would you say, what sort of age would you say when you started to have struggles and things like that?
I was just about to say, you want me to delve into some pain? You're like, this conversation's too smooth. No, trust me, it came. Like school was a breeze. Even school was fine, and then I got really good GCSEs again. That was all cool. I went to college. College was probably the first time where I started to feel a bit lost.
Okay. Why do you think that
got to college and I was like, I was just one of them kids, I did not know what I wanted to do. Like I had things I was interested in. Obviously I knew I loved music, but even to this day, like if you'd have told like 16-year-old me like one day you're going to work in music, I would just think that's bizarre because music was just like something that I loved. I never imagined doing it as a job, like ever. So yeah, I left school and I got into college and I was just a bit like, what do I do? I did college. I didn't really enjoy college at all. I studied art, which I love. I've always been really creative, so I did art. And then I was like, okay, let me play it safe, like, because I don't know what I want to do. So I went for English language and literature, which I didn't actually enjoy studying it, but I do think it helped me because I love writing. So I have written and I do write from time to time. So I do think that helped me. But in an academic sense, I just started learning that I didn't like being in education. I don't, as a person, and I've learned this as I've got older, I just don't like feeling like restricted.
Okay.
And that's probably why I enjoy like working for myself and having my own company, because I just like to do things on my time. And I felt like college was like, hey, you've got a timetable, you have to be in at this time, you have to do this. Like, I just hated it. So it wasn't really the work, it was more like the actual environment of like being in college. And I didn't want to feel like a kid anymore. I wanted to get out there and be an adult. So yeah, I didn't enjoy it. I did media as well. So they're all things that I did have a base interest in, but just the actual environment of college just wasn't for me. So yeah, I left college. So obviously I'm 18 now, and obviously throughout college, you keep getting told, oh, you know, you need to decide what you want to do and what you're going to study at uni. And it was one of them things. Again, I'm so grateful like to my mum and dad for never like pressuring me, because they never made me feel like I had to go uni or anything. And I knew that I didn't want to go. I just always, from a kid, like I just knew that it just wasn't for me. And I always said that, okay, if down the line something comes up and I think, okay, I want to go and study this, I would just go later on, like, you know, not take a gap year, the opposite of taking a gap year, like just go into study. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, so I knew I didn't want to go uni, but yeah, I'm 18 and I'm just like, I have no clue what I want to do. Like, I had some base interests in a few things, but I was just really lost. I just started applying for jobs because like, okay, well, if I'm not like studying, I need to just be earning money, right? So I started applying for jobs, but obviously because I didn't really have any like job experience, like nowhere would like take me. I remember this one day, like I applied for a job at Asda and I didn't get it, and I literally had a breakdown, and I said to my mum, I was like, I can't even get a job at Asda, like what the hell is wrong with me? But it's so mad when I think like I was so young back then and I had like my whole life ahead of me, but in that moment I felt like I was such a failure. But my advice to anyone, like if you're listening to this and you're kind of in college or maybe like coming to the end of school, whatever, and you're feeling like you don't know what you want to do, like please just don't force yourself to do anything and don't feel pressured, because you have so much time and they make you feel like you have to have one career that's going to last like your whole life. But if you want to do like, you know, one thing for 10 years and then move on to something else, like you absolutely can. I just felt so much pressure at that age to just have my life like figured out, and I just didn't, and it just made me feel stressed.
Do you think that pressure, I mean, where do you think it came from? Do you think it was self-inflicted or were there influences which...
I think it's just society. I think in every sense we get pressured. You know, you've got to leave school, you've got to get a job, or like you've got to go uni, get a job, then you've got to meet someone, then you've got to get married, then you've got to have it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I had that exact kind of like time frame in my head of like, okay, I need to do all these things and I kind of want to do them by a certain age as well. I feel like it's just society, like there's just so much pressure.
What created that shift then for you to say, actually no, that's not the route that I want to go down?
Yeah, I just went with what made me feel happiest, and then in the end I actually ended up pursuing a career in makeup. So I'd always been, like I say, creative, and I just really started getting into makeup. I can't remember how I got into it, but I just started buying loads of makeup, putting loads of makeup like on my friends and stuff, and they was like, oh, you're really good at this, like you know, asking me to do their makeup when they went out and stuff. And it literally just happened like almost by accident. I just became a makeup artist. So I literally did that from like the age of like, yeah, about 19 until like very recently, kind of like before the pandemic. And then during obviously like COVID and stuff, I was like really kind of, I'd been in the industry, but more like the music industry, but just on the side. Obviously I'd been managing my brother, I'd been networking loads of different people, trying to kind of get a foot in, but again, still never really feeling like, oh, I could do this as my full-time job. It was just something that I really enjoyed. And then, yeah, obviously, like, the pandemic kind of hit, and then, like, I couldn't do makeup anymore. And I was like, do you know what? Like, if there's one time in my life where I can kind of, like, just go for it, it's now. So I just started working towards that and just slowly kind of, yeah, just getting more connections and building relationships. And weirdly, like obviously you had to do everything online. So a lot of those relationships were literally like from, you know, people on Twitter, and some of the most amazing people I've met, and even like, you know, friends that are probably going to be friends with like for life. Like I'd literally met during that time, like on places like Twitter and Instagram, which is just crazy. So yeah, I feel like I've like jumped ahead now, but
No, not at all.
yeah, that's basically kind of how I got from there to here. But yeah, I'd say the main thing that kind of followed me all the way through was just I wanted to just be doing something that I enjoyed doing, and until I found what that was, yeah, it's just like don't put pressure on yourself to like find it, because you will find it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. And no, it's a great explanation, so I appreciate you going in so much detail, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of people. So I mean, to transition to the present, so the 1994 collective, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I think so it's roughly 11 months, so approaching a year.
Yeah,
not even a year yet. So I mean, how pleased are you with how things are going?
Like, it's just weird. I think we get so caught up in, you know, moving on to the next thing. I'm the worst for that. Like, I will be so far ahead. Like, I'm already thinking about all the things I want to do next year, and I sometimes forget to actually like be in the moment and just appreciate it. And it's weird. Like, even last night I went to bed, like sometimes I just get these waves of like reflection, and I was just like, do you know what? When I actually think about where I was like even a year ago to now, and like, you know, my company and like all these things that have happened, all the people I've met, all the kind of experiences I've had, it like until you actually look back, sometimes you take it for granted, and you don't really kind of realize, okay, I actually took all these little steps to get to this point. Because I think sometimes we expect it to be like some overnight thing, you know, like all of a sudden it's like, oh cool, my career's like popping off, but it just is so gradual that sometimes you don't even realize it. So yeah, the fact that it's only been 11 months, like still, I feel like it's been like obviously forever, but I have to like remind myself that it's not been long, and like all the things that, you know, we've already done in that short space of time, it just blows my mind when I think about it. But
how hard has it been?
Yeah, it's not been easy at all. And I think for me, like I'm such a perfectionist, so my main thing that I struggled with was like finding the balance between work and like my life, and, you know, looking after myself, you know, making sure I'm not working too much, I'm not, you know, I'm sleeping enough, I'm, you know, looking after myself in terms of what I'm eating. And you know how it is when you're busy, it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna eat this because it's quick and easy or whatever, like. And I found myself doing that, but it's because I cared so much about, okay, everything needs to be perfect. And even to the point of like, in the beginning, I didn't like delegating any tasks or anything, because I was so precious about, okay, but what if this person can't do it how I want them to do it, or to the standard that I want them to do it. So I was just doing everything myself, and it literally made me just burn out. And like that I found really hard. I felt so much pressure, because when you're starting like a company and you're almost like building a brand, it's like, it's so important to make that first impression very strong, because if you start off on the wrong foot, then people are going to know about you for the wrong reasons. So I was very much kind of fixated on, okay, but you know, I need to make a good impression. Everyone I work with, like, they need to walk away and feel like, oh my God, like I had the best service, and you know, they're a sick company, I'm going to recommend them to this person. So I just took it upon myself to just like swallow all of that like pressure and anxiety. And obviously, you know, we know stress is just the worst thing for you. So it just ended up manifesting into like, me just feeling like I was like drowning all the time. So it's just been a learning curve though. Like, I've never had a company before. I've never like had, you know, a team that I have to manage. Like, it was all new to me. So I guess I couldn't have expected it to be easy, because it would have just been too good to be true.
Exactly.
So I don't regret kind of doing things the wrong way. I feel like it kind of taught me a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it wasn't easy.
No, for sure. I think it's important to get that out there, and ultimately I think a lot of what people see for many different reasons is all the successes, the awards that you're up for and stuff like that, and they think, oh, they just got there in the click of a finger. It was interesting that you mentioned about like that work-life balance, and that definitely resonates. And
It's
I
so
think
hard.
I think everyone struggles with it to a certain degree, but
Yeah.
I wondered how much harder you think it is when actually it's your baby, as opposed to just going to work and coming away from it and switching off.
Yeah, it is that, and it never stops. Like, at least, you can have stresses from work, 100%. Like, I've worked in like other jobs where, I felt pressure from someone else because I've got to do, I've got to please my manager or whatever it may be. But at least with like those types of jobs, like for example retail, I worked in makeup, but I worked in like makeup retail. So I was doing makeup, but I was in a store. So, but at least when I clocked out from my shift, could just go home. I didn't have to think about work. I wasn't thinking, do you know what I mean? I just used to go on about my life. But when you can't switch off, like when it's your own company, like you never switch off. Like I'm literally going to bed thinking about, okay, tomorrow I need to do that. I need to text this. Like, you know what I mean? Like my brain just does not stop. And I think that's the thing that no one really prepares you for, is like that constant feeling of like, am I doing enough? Is everything done? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to me. Like I'm the, I'm the top of the food chain, if you like. I've got to make sure everyone else, like, around me is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And yeah, when you work for yourself, it all falls on you. So it's not like you can just be like, oh, this person can just take, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, the word of warning to anyone who wants to start their own company, like just, be prepared. Maybe take a holiday, like just before, so that you can get your mind right. But yeah, it's mad.
And given that hard work that you've gone into detail on and explained in great light, but how happy does that make you feel when you get up for awards like the Young Music Boss Award, that Best Service Agency, isn't it? So how does that make you feel when you've gone through all of that hard work and put the late nights in, the early mornings?
It just, it makes me feel like it was all worth it. Because sometimes when you're going through this, you're just feeling like, what's the point? Like, I'm doing all this work. Is it even going to get recognised? Or not even that, because I don't really do anything for recognition. Me, like, if you've ever worked with me, like, you'll know I'm very personable with the people that I work with the artists that I work with. Like, I probably care too much. And that's probably why I end up getting so stressed, because I just want to make sure I'm helping them as much as I can, whatever they've asked of me, with their release and the places they want to get to and the targets that they want to hit. Like, if I can't help them do that, like, I take it personally. So in the sense of like winning the award and feeling like, is it worth it? It's just like, when I see things like that, especially like I say, I'm not one to like, pay too much attention to accolades and things like that, but yeah, it does make you feel like, okay, there's people out there that are kind of like, and I think that's one thing I'll say to everyone, and especially artists. Like, a lot of artists feel like they're not seen, or like they'll put their music out and they're like, oh, but no one, I've not got this many views and I've not got, but you do not know who is watching you. I'm telling you now, like, there could be someone from that, a huge record label that has just had their eye on you for a year and just waiting to see what you do. Do you know what I mean? And they might all of a sudden, it takes that one email or whatever, them to reach out, and then your whole life could be different. Do you get what I mean? But you just never know. And I think it's not concentrating on those exterior accolades or, pats on the back from people. It's more just remembering why you actually started it in the first place. And for me, it was like, okay, I love music and I want to help like artists. Like, I want to help artists to get their music out there. Like, there's so much good music and it's not being heard. Like, do you get what I mean? So
Agreed.
When I go back to like my why and like, okay, why did I start this? It's like, okay, yeah, like it's been hard, but it's worth it because I'm doing what I set out to do. Do you get what I mean? So
yeah, 100%. And you say about helping artists, so interesting. It'd be great to get it out there for people that are watching that potentially don't know the full circle offering. So let's say, for sake of example, I'm an up and coming artist. I come to you and I say, look, I want to get my next single out there. How are you going to help me?
So I normally start with asking, like, what are your goals? So what do you kind of want to achieve with this release? There's, different artists have different things that they've already built up already. So some artists already have a super strong fan base. Some artists already have, however many followers on Instagram. But obviously in one area or another, something's not connecting. So I normally start there and just say, look, what is it you're struggling with like the most, and what do you kind of want to achieve? And then that's when they're like, oh, okay, I actually want to build up my YouTube channel. I want to get more subscribers and I want, or I want to build up a fan base because I want to do a headline show, but I don't have any fans right now, or wherever it may be, because every artist's journey is different.
Sure. You mentioned like kind of a disconnect there, like they might be good at one thing, but they're not good at the other. What do you think is the most common disconnect?
I think there's a disconnect that most artists think they should be focusing on, and then there's like what they actually should be focusing on. So most artists feel like they're not doing well because, like I said, they're not getting the streams, they're not getting the YouTube views, they're not getting like they're focusing on the numbers and the figures, when actually most artists really should be focusing on building that core fan base, whether that's 10 people to then 100 people. Like, they're the people who eventually are going to go to your shows, buy your merch. And for an artist, like we all know, it's so hard for them to even make a living out of music. Like they're constantly, paying for stuff, studio, video, this, that, but they rarely see like anything back. So it's like, if you actually want to do it as a career, that's the things you need to be focusing on is, who is going to be supporting me, who's going to actually be putting money in my pocket because they love my music. Like, and it's building that loyalty, because you can have someone who likes one of your tunes. That's easy. Like, if you've made a good tune, someone can like it, but is that person like really invested in you as an artist? Do they want to know maybe a bit more about you in a personal way, and what you get up to when you're not doing music, and what your hobbies are and stuff? And buying your merch and coming to your shows, like that takes a fan. Like, someone's not just going to come out their house for you if they don't really like your music. Do you get what I mean? So I think the most common kind of like disconnect for artists is having that fan base, because they're too busy focusing on how many like followers they have, and
like that instant gratification.
The instant gratification. And mate, I've had so many artists literally like on the phone to me for like an hour, like just going through it, like being like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I know I'm good, and I've been doing this a long, like some of these artists have been doing it a very long time, and I feel for them, because it's like they've put their heart and soul sometimes into their career, and sometimes they feel like they're not getting anything back, but it's normally because they're looking for that instant gratification and the numbers. And
how do you change or attempt to change that mindset?
I think it's just working together with them, just to make them realize what is actually important. And that's why I say I have quite a personal approach, is because I just kind of just almost remind them that you're a very talented artist. Like, you make amazing music, and just because you're not Stormzy or Jay-Z, like, doesn't mean that you might have not changed someone's life with your music, like, and that's incredible in itself. And I think it's just realizing as well that you don't have to blow to be to have a career in music. You don't have to be this huge person. Like, if you can just get by and maybe make a nice living off music and live comfortably, I think you're winning. Like, someone who I always go back to is someone like JME. Like, he's so reserved and quiet. Like, when he comes out and he does his thing, and he releases his music and that, but when he's not doing that, he's just at home with his family, but he's living good. Like, we all know he's done very well for himself, but he's not concerned with this, that and the other, and like being this flashy guy and like drip and all these things. Like, he's just like loves music, does his thing, and you can make it work like that. But like you say, I think it's just letting them know that they need to just, again, remember why you started. Why did you start making music? Because you love music. Like, why does it matter to you then if everyone else likes it? Like, sometimes it's just enough to like make art and put it out there and just let your art do its thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's an incredible explanation, and again, I'm sure that our audience, essentially a lot of the audience listening, is going to be up and coming artists and potentially young artists as well. So I'm sure that will really hit home with them. But I can't help think, say if I'm an 18-year-old up and coming artist, I believe my potential is absolutely through the roof, and I hear that from you. I can't help but think that maybe I'd be a bit demoralised and think, oh, maybe I can't get as big as I want to get. So what's the sort of reaction that you get often when you give that sort of advice and potentially speak some home truths that I can imagine some people don't want to hear?
Do you know what? Most people, it actually refreshes them, because they're just a bit like, do you know what? You've actually kind of made me just look at it in a different way. And it's not even like, you know, managing their expectations in terms of like telling them they can't do something, because I don't believe in like, you know, being negative. If there's something you want to do, like my mum and dad always said to me, Chloe, if there's something you want to do, go and do it. Like, you can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't let anything stop you, but I think there's just a way to kind of go about something in terms of like, why do you want to get to where you want to get to? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is actually like the deeper meaning behind it? Is it for you, or is it because you feel like you need to get to them places to impress other people? Do you know what I mean? And I think when you actually sit with it and think about it, like, you know, and what it means to you personally, I think a lot of artists do think, do you know what, like, you know, I've been doing music, I actually just enjoy it. I love going studio with my boys and like, you know, doing this, like, that can be enough for you. Do you get what I mean? And, you know, some artists, you know, they have a 9 to 5, they work. A lot of artists do. A lot of artists work really hard. They have their 9 to 5, then they just do music kind of, you know, as and when they can. And, you know, some people have been doing that for years. And I'm not saying like, you know, you should be satisfied with that. If you're not satisfied with that, that's fine. But it's like, don't beat yourself up if you're not like at the place you want to be like right now. And especially, you know, like you said, someone who's maybe 18, it's, yeah, you've got time, like you've got so much time, like, and yeah, I think with everything in life, just remember why you started doing it, and just always come back to that, like
100%. And that fire is going to help propel you to where you want to go and where you believe that you should righteously be as well. So I think that's really important. I'm glad you could elaborate on that point, so thank you, I really appreciate it. Before we kind of, I guess, move on from 1994 momentarily, what would you say is like your biggest win today? Quick one. We work with a lot of up and coming urban artists across the UK who are seeking press assistance, radio airtime, creative marketing solutions, and really all round artist development within an industry that is constantly evolving. Which is why when we had the opportunity to partner with the 1994 Collective on this podcast, it made perfect sense. So to any aspiring artists that are seeking commercial success, please do get in contact with the 1994 Collective and let them know we sent you.
Oh my God. Do you know, okay, for me, it's definitely anyone who says, okay, for example, like, when was it, maybe like a month ago, I did like a lecture. Well, I call it like a lecture. It was a group of kids studying, it was like a music course for how to kind of get in the industry. It was set up by Finesse Forever, so shout out to them. I think it's incredible. I believe they offered it like for free. I think they got funding or something. So anything to do with, you know, like helping people come up, and especially young people, like, I'm all for it. And I definitely want to do more of that as I go throughout my career, because I know what it's like to kind of be at the beginning and just not have a clue. Like, you have this passion, and it's like, okay, where do I go with it, and how do I get into these rooms and all of these things? It's very daunting. So yeah, they put on this course, and I did like a lecture about, you know, me, how I came up in the industry, you know, my company, and how I started, and all these things. And this girl messaged me after, and she was just like, oh, like, thank you so much, like, you've really inspired me, because you're a woman, and, you know, the fact that you're doing it and you're a girl, like, it makes me feel like I can do it. And that's a big thing for me, because being a woman in this industry is just it's a headache. That's a whole nother podcast episode.
Wow.
But yeah, to have her, like, to be able to just inspire someone, or to just help them to keep going with their dream is just like a big achievement for me, and probably the biggest achievement, because yeah, we all need that little push sometimes. And I think sometimes it's so easy to get discouraged, and, you know, social media especially, it's just can be such a killer. Like, you just look at things and you think, oh my God, but, you know, I'm here and I've done really well, but like, I'm still not there. Like, look at that person, like, and it's never enough. Like, nothing you do ever feels like enough. So and I go through that, and you probably go through that, you know, especially as content creator. Like, you constantly want what you're doing to be better and better, and, like, you know, better than the last one, and better than the last one. But sometimes you have to just sit with yourself and be like, do you know what? I'm actually doing all right. Like, I might not be where I want to be yet, but I'm doing all right. And yeah, just the fact that, you know, she said that, you know, as a fellow woman, you know, she really appreciated hearing my story. yeah, that's what it's all about to me. Like.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that you've given that answer, actually, for a few reasons. I'll be honest. So firstly, you kind of touched upon earlier when we were speaking about the award that, look, that's not the reason I do it. It's great, and I'm super grateful for it, but actually that's not the core kind of ethos of the brand. It's more about helping people. But I'm also glad you gave that answer, because I wanted to move on to talk about, so forgive me if I pronounce this incorrectly, but femusic?
Yeah, do you know what? There's actually no correct pronunciation. I don't even know how I say it. Fem music or theme music or yeah, okay. I don't really know, but yeah, I think I still need to work out how I actually want it to be pronounced so that people don't get confused. But yeah,
so I wanted to talk about that, and you touched upon, you gave kind of a brief explanation of, look, it's super hard being within the industry as a woman. So I mean, for the people that are potentially ignorant or just unaware of the problem, how would you sum up how big that problem is and what it looks like to someone that's unaware?
Yeah, no, that's good. A good kind of segue into this. I would say it looks like just not being treated as an equal, like not being treated how you would treat your male counterparts, and that's just down to like the littlest thing, you know, walking into studio sessions, not being greeted because they just think that you're just like hanging around with the artists, or you're like some groupie or something, like just like things that are just basic kind of like codes of conduct that we just don't get. We just don't get the same respect sometimes, and it takes for me to actually, you know, have to stand there and be like, oh no, actually, you know, I'm such and such, you know, I'm this person's manager, or I'm here for this reason, or whatever it is. And it's just not feeling respected, not feeling like you're treated as equal, and kind of being lured into certain circumstances because you think that the person is being kind of like very, you know, genuine, and you know,
what circumstances? Like,
so for example, not happened to me because I'm not an artist, but say you're an artist, I'm a female artist, Jen. A photographer sends me a DM and is like, hey, like, really love your work, I would love to shoot some free pictures for you. So as an artist, and probably, you know, an upcoming artist is maybe not a lot of budget, you're thinking, sweet, like I can get some cool shots for my Instagram page, like wicked. But little do you know, like, he's gonna, you know, do the shots for you maybe, and then cool. It's like you're now made to feel, from either how he's acting with you or how he's, you know, coming across in maybe his messages, whatever, that now it's like you kind of owe him something, or it's like, you know, a bit too like flirty, or he's now trying to ask you like different questions, like, you know, about, I don't know, anything that's, you know, obviously towards a sexual side or whatever it is. It's like you go into these situations on a very kind of professional and like innocent basis, and then by the time you've got to the end, it's like, okay, I actually see now what this person wants from me, and it's not to take free pictures of me. It's like they kind of, they want more. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. But then because now they've done you a favor, it's like that's how a lot of women get into these situations where you now feel pressured. Oh, come and like meet me here, or come to this studio session, or come like do this or whatever, and you kind of feel obliged to kind of reciprocate, because okay, well, you know, he did take 3 pictures of me, and he's you know, and I think sometimes it's like you really don't notice until sometimes maybe someone else might mention it or something like that, or you've now got yourself into like a serious situation where, you know, you're made to feel very uncomfortable or whatever it is. And I've had so many female artists say like, no, I really want to work with this artist, but I just don't want to go to the studio on my own. Like, will you come with me? Or, you know, like, and it's just mad to think that, like, you know, women like can feel like so unsafe just around a male, like to the point that they wouldn't even just go and record music with someone, because they feel like, you know, there might be an ulterior motive, or he might try and come on to me, or you know, put me in a pressurized situation. So
it's interesting what you mentioned about like the situation of free pictures, which then leads into potentially wanting something else, something sexual. And like, I've read like a lot of books on influence, and it's like the old analogy of like, so say if we went to a cafe, for sake of example, and I bought you a coffee which was £2.60, if we then went to Wingstop, for sake of example, you would feel obliged to buy me wings which might be £8. So actually it's much more than what I've given you, but because I've done the favour in the first place, you feel obliged to return that, but then go over the top, and in this case go into something which is obviously not right.
and it's when it's like they know what they're doing from the beginning. Do you know what I mean? It's almost
Scheme.
like it's a way of luring you in. You know what I mean? It's getting you on side, making you feel like, oh, you're like, this guy's really nice because like, you know, he's just offered to do this for me for free. Like, so you're obviously gonna think, you know, he's a nice person, aren't you? But yeah, it's just
how frequent would you say that sort of situation is? Because I mean, it sounds like the way that you're talking about, it's not just been like one conversation you've had.
No, and to me, like, again, I feel blessed that, you know, I've never personally been through any kind of serious situations with men and stuff like that. Like, I'm luckily like a very confident person, and I'm also not afraid to kind of like speak up if I feel like someone's taken advantage, or, you know, I'll just shut something down, or, you know, I can assert myself depending on the situation. But obviously, you know, a lot of women, and probably most women, like feel like they can't in them situations. You know, men can just feel very much, you know, intimidating, and, you know, anything for an easy life as well sometimes. You get what I mean? So I would say the reason I know about it is because like women have come to me and told me like, this is what I've been through, these are my experiences. And, you know, the stories I could tell you are just crazy. And you know, some of these are from women who, you know, I'm very close to. And,
please do,
you know,
without naming names, please do tell.
I feel like I can't because some of these people, it's like, you know, these stories have kind of end up coming out, and then it's like yeah, like they've put their name to them and kind of come out in a sense of like, okay, this is what happened to me, and I'm not afraid to speak about it, because if it helps someone else, then I'm happy to kind of put myself out on a ledge type of thing. But yeah, just, you know, very public things to do with men, and, you know, men kind of like just unashamedly bashing, you know, people that they've had relations with, and just it being accepted. Like, it's just crazy. So yeah, it's sad that I, you know, I feel like it is very common, but I do feel like, you know, we're making waves in terms of, you know, bringing awareness to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first step. I think we can't expect to change everything overnight, but I think it does, like, I'll have conversations with other people like I'm having with you, and they'll literally be shocked. Like, men will be shocked, and they'll just be like, but, you know, who would do that? And you do think like, well, yeah, who would do that? But at the same time, do you think that's
naivety though, or maybe not wanting to believe how big the problem is? Maybe,
but, you know, most guys out there are decent. Like, you know, I would say it is the minority of men who obviously act in this way. So that's probably why, you know, a lot of men are shocked. But I think the main thing, like, if you are, you know, a man, and especially a man within the industry, and you're listening to this, it's like, we just need you to, like, be aware. So obviously we're going to tell you about what's going on, and okay, now you're aware, but it's also like speaking on our behalf, and actually like speaking up. Like, if you see something, you know, pull up, like, you know, if your brethren's like clearly ignored a woman who's walked in the room, like, pull him up on it, like, let him know that his behavior is not okay. Like, and I think it's just men kind of, like I say, going a bit more of that extra mile to kind of be our voices, because we can shout and scream, like we've been doing that. Like, we've been shouting and screaming for so long about, you know, this and that, and how we're not treated equal. But I think when it comes from a man, it's a lot more powerful, because you're actually saying like,
sure,
do you know what? I hear where you're coming from, and I'm actually going to help you to get your message across. I'm not just going to listen to you. I'm actually going to like echo what you're saying. Yeah. And I think, you know, that for me is really important. And I do know a lot of men in the industry who, you know, actively do get involved in, you know, a lot of these kind of events and, you know, practices and stuff like that, and advocate for us. And that, you know, I'm so grateful to those men who do actively do that, because, you know, it shouldn't have to take maybe, you know, a woman that you are really close with, or like your sister or something, for you to like take action. It should just be enough to know that it's happening. Do the right thing. And just do the right thing. Yeah. But
so what specifically is it you're doing for the people that are unaware?
So especially like stuff like fem music. Bringing it back to that, it's okay. So we've done one event so far, but the aim is really to just provide a lot of education for women, and a sense of kind of empowerment, and a sense of community, safe spaces, I think, for women in the music industry. So yeah, going forward, like, the events are always going to be quite social. There's always going to be like a networking aspect, but I think a lot of it is, you know, we want to have a lot of panels and kind of like seminars, talks, opportunities to speak to other women in the industry, maybe find out, you know, what they've been through and, you know, certain things that they've gone through and, you know, how to kind of get through certain things if you've had certain experiences, and just how we can all collectively work together to like make change. So the fem music is more about the empowerment side. It's allowing you to feel like, do you know what, you know, I might be going through, you know, certain situations, or I might have gone through certain situations, but at the end of the day, like, I know I've got a strong, you know, group of women around me that I can go to if I ever did feel like, you know, I need help or I need advice or I need support. It's more just providing that. But yeah, there's so many kind of organizations in the industry that are kind of doing a lot of kind of work advocating this, and like you say, like raising awareness, like Women in Control, Nadia, she's actually Lethal Bizzle's manager. But she has a company called Women in Control, and she literally, like, she's constantly doing like seminars and talks and, you know, all these things, petitions and just things to just help women to just become viewed as equal within the industry. So she's amazing. Cactus City as well, which are they started off as like a music studio, but they're now kind of just advocates for, again, women in music safety, creating safe spaces, even, you know, down to like the studio. They made like a female led studio where women could just go and record and just feel comfortable. So which is amazing. But it's also, it's creating those spaces, but then it's also saying, okay, we don't want to have our own spaces. Like
we're doing this as a
result of what's happening. But ideally, you know, we want to be able to like just get in with everyone and work together. So there's so much going on, and it makes me feel excited that you know, I feel like people are waking up and being more aware, and even just having conversations like this, you know, at least if one person listens and takes something from it, then that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the catalyst for more conversation, which creates the change eventually, 100%, right?
100%, yeah.
Sure, yeah. No, I wanted to go into that because obviously it's very much part of your present, and I know we've kind of spoke via WhatsApp and stuff like that about this issue. So I think it's important to bring it to light, and like you say, hopefully promote more conversations, which will eventually promote that very much needed change. So
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you going into it in so much detail though. So I mean, before we kind of move into the future and goals and things like that, obviously business related and also personal, obviously I've been following you for a little while on Twitter now, and incredibly vocal on Twitter, and potentially you can see where I'm going with this, but I know you tweeted recently a little bit about your personal journey, so your weight loss, and you tweeted 2 pictures, which I think you referenced were months apart, even though the difference, to be transparent, it looks years apart, which is a great thing. But 100%. I wondered if for people that are listening, because I'm sure again this is a topic that will resonate with a lot of people, if you could talk a little bit about that. And I think within the caption or maybe one of the comments below, you said about sleepless nights, crippling anxiety. So although I'm sure it would be tough, it would be great to hear a little bit about that, but kind of how you came out the other side of that and what was the catalyst for change.
No, I'm more than happy to talk about it, because I'm someone, I think I even put on that post, like, you know, not enough people I feel are transparent enough, or just transparent in general. And I've always found a lot of like healing from even myself by just actually just speaking and just kind of like sharing. Sometimes I feel like, oh my God, am I like oversharing? But at the same time, whenever I have shared, you know, quite personal things like that, you know, I've always been greeted with people who appreciate it, and I'm not doing it for like people saying well done and all these things, that like it's for the people who are actually like, okay, do you know what, this is actually me, like I'm going through this now, or I've been through this, like wow, this person who maybe I didn't have any kind of idea that they could be feeling like I am, like they are, and you know, this is how they've managed to, you know, overcome it, and this is how they've managed to kind of get through it. And that to me is so important. And I think especially like just mental health and just being transparent on social media is important, because it's such a highlight reel. Like I know everyone says this, but it really is. And I think you know, it's so easy to just think that everyone has got their life figured out, like everyone's doing great and everyone's this and that. And you know, you can fake so much now on social media. You know, you can edit yourself to make yourself look skinny, like you can do all these things. And I think again, it goes back to that pressure, like that society pressure of like, you know, having to be a certain way and look a certain way and have achieved certain things. And I think I just let all of those pressures just really get on top of me and like eat away at me and just make me feel like I just constantly wasn't, you know, good enough or doing enough, or, you know. And the easiest thing to do, you know, for me is, you know, I love food, and I've always been someone who, you know, I've exercised pretty much my whole life. I've always enjoyed going to the gym. I was always really active. Even in school, I was really athletic. So always been a very slim person. Like, so I think I could tell that, you know, something wasn't right and I needed to actually like look after myself, was when I could know. It's not even about like the exterior. I think the exterior obviously alerts you to it more, but what I had to work on was like what was going on internal, like in here, and like how I felt in my body. And you know, I was just, when you get used to living a certain way as well, it's like you don't really notice it. But when I started paying attention, I was like, okay, I'm waking up every morning, I can't breathe because my chest feels so tight because I'm so stressed. I'm worrying about everything, and I'm constantly, you know, I feel so much pressure because, you know, whether it's, you know, making sure my clients are happy, or, you know, okay, yeah, I'm having a day where I feel like, you know, I don't look great or whatever, and I've got to go to this event and I've got to meet people, and you know what I mean? And then all these things, like, you know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm anyone special by any stretch, or I'm definitely not a celebrity, but, you know, obviously I have a presence now in this industry, and, you know, even going to events now, like people will constantly come up to me and like know who I am and ask me about things, and, you know, say, oh, you know, I've been following you and da. So it's like, you know, there's a lot of pressure to kind of feel like you have to be a certain way, and I think I just really let that get on top of me. And yeah, like stress can just do crazy things to your body, and I can't even sit here and say that, you know, I was massively overeating and stuff, because I actually wasn't. Like, I was probably eating a bit more than normal, but it wasn't about the weight. It was how it was affecting my body, like in terms of like the stress was just manifesting within me physically, and it was just making me feel awful. Like I had no energy, you know, I was emotional. Like I say, I would wake up in the morning and just feel stressed, and, you know, I wasn't happy. And then that's when you have those moments where you think, why am I doing this? Like, why am I allowing myself to kind of get into this place? Like, is it even worth it? Like, I'm, you know, I'm doing all these amazing things, but I'm not even in a place where I can enjoy it, because I'm either so exhausted or I'm so emotional, or, you know, I'm just not happy. And that was nothing to do with anybody else. Like, it was completely like a me problem. And that's just really when, as I was saying before about, you know, having a balance, and it is very hard, but I just had to be so strict with myself, and I had to just say, no, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not overworking myself. I'm gonna, you know, there's a cut-off point, you know, past, you know, I don't know, I think I said like 6 o'clock. I'm not responding to messages. I'm not looking at my emails, because before it would be like I had no structure. It would just be like literally wake up, work, sleep. That's not healthy. No. Like, and I think we've got into this kind of place with like this hustle culture.
Yeah, I agree.
You've got to hustle and you've got to do this, and, you know, if you have to work all the hours, and it sounds lovely because it sounds like, yeah, you're really going for it, and it's not a healthy way to live. Like, no, it's really not. And I think you can only, that's what I kept having to tell myself, Chloe, you can only do so much. You can only do what you can do. And if that means that you don't have the capacity to have this Zoom call or go for this meeting or, you know, reply to that email, it can wait. Do it tomorrow. Like, you're not gonna die. But you almost feel like you're gonna die if you don't do this one thing. So that's why I say, like, I'm so grateful that I went through that, and you know, I did massively learn the hard way, 100%, but it's really made me realize what I want and what I don't want. And I don't want to live to work. Like, I don't know what the phrase is, but you know what I mean? The other one, the other way. Like, I don't want to feel like my life is just work. Like, I love what I do, 100% I do, but I'm a person you know, I had to really realize what actually makes me happy, you know, what makes me feel good, what do I enjoy doing that's outside of work. And I lost that part of me. I lost, you know, things that just kind of brought me joy but didn't bring money. Like, and I think it's so easy to think, oh, okay, well, if it's not bringing me money, then it's not worth my time. And you get into this mindset of, you know, like, no, I have to be earning money from everything I do. And like, even going back to, you know, being an artist, like, money obviously is amazing, and if you can make a living from what you do, that, I mean, that to me is like the ultimate like goals. But at the end of the day, like, there are some things that you can do as a hobby, and sometimes it might be music that's your hobby, and it's like you're not meant to be this big person. So for me, I kind of had to realize that, you know, okay, this is my work, but I need something else. Like, I need to just be a human. I need to be Chloe outside of 1994, and I think I just allowed it to just take over my life. And you can see from the pictures, like, it's crazy how something can manifest on the outside. Like, it actually made me look different. I looked like a completely different person, and like I said, it's not just because I was eating nice, it's because, you know, my mind was not in a good place, and it just made my whole body and my whole world was just upside down. Like, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's thank you again for such detail, honesty and transparency. Like you say, I think that transparency is hugely important. I think it's interesting you mentioned like the highlight reel of Instagram and stuff like that. I think like trying to keep up with that almost breeds depression, to be transparent.
It really does.
With you, and I think that acceptance and then that vulnerability that you've shown actually breeds life and acceptance, and so I think that's hugely important. And another great topic within kind of the end part of your answer, then you referenced you forgot kind of what made you happy and what happiness was essentially. So I was interested to understand at this present moment in time, before we move into the future section, how happy would you say you are?
It's really weird. I was thinking about this today, but I was thinking I'm actually, like, for the first time in, you know, probably maybe I want to say like since I've started 1994, but it makes it sound like since I started it was like such a bad thing. But I would say, you know, for the first time in a very long time, I actually feel like I have that balance now. Like, you know, it's not to say I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, because even if I was overworking myself and all of those crazy things, like I was still enjoying it, because I wouldn't have been doing it otherwise. Like, no one was forcing me. No one was holding a gun to my head and saying, you've got to do this. Like, I was enjoying it, but I was just doing way too much. And it then ended up getting to a point where I kind of started to resent it, because I was like, wow, look at what it's done to me. Do you get what I mean? But yeah, like now in myself and in, you know, in my career and my personal life, like I literally feel so, like, I think the word more is like at peace, rather than like, you know, happiness. I feel like can come and go. Like, you know, you can have days where you feel unhappy, or you can have days where you feel a bit down or whatever. But I think when you actually just have peace, like even if you are going through those emotions, it's just kind of acknowledging that and just saying, okay, I'm having a bit of a stressful day today, but it's fine. Like, you know, it's just a day, and tomorrow I can just, you know, make sure that it's a better day than yesterday. And that's where I feel like I'm at. Like, I feel like I know myself a lot better. I know what my triggers are. I know what makes me feel stressed now. I know what I need to do to get back to, you know, me and feeling like myself. I love being on my own. I've always kind of known that, but I love my own company. So even though like I live with my partner, like we still make sure that we have that time, like, and I do make sure I have that space for myself, which is really important. And like I say, you've got to figure out for you what those kind of self-care practices are, because everyone's is different. For a lot of men, it's, you know, going to play football with their boys, or, you know, going gym. A lot of men like love going to gym. You know, it's their release. They you know, it makes them feel better, and it keeps their mental in check and all these things. But everyone's got different, you know, self-care practices. And yeah, I just kind of figured out what mine were. And yeah, I'm just at a place where I feel like just going with the flow, and just understanding that, you know, life is not a straight line, like, and things will happen that are going to test me, but it's okay, because I'll always get through the other side, even if it's hard. Yeah, so yeah.
Great answer. So it kind of feeds into the future element of of the podcast. So I think I kind of know how you're going to answer this, and it's going to be interesting. Okay. So what do you define as success?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think to me, in a personal sense or a business sense, like
Let's
career wise. Okay. I think success for me is just accepting that, this is the personal side, accepting that I'm me and no one else is me, and that makes me, incredible, because, at the end of the day, no one else is me. And I think for so long, like you say, social media, you can just keep comparing yourself. Oh, but I'm not, I don't have a waist like this girl, or I don't look like this girl, or I'm not doing the things that she's doing, or whatever. And you constantly kind of measure yourself up against other people. And I did that for so long, whereas now it's just like, do you know what, like I actually, all the little things I used to hate about myself or want to change or felt like, oh, it's not good enough, like I just embrace it now. And that makes me feel successful, the fact that I can just be myself, which is so important. So yeah, that's like the more personal side. But I'd say career wise, I just have to take it back to just, if I can help or inspire anyone with anything that I do, or my work or my career, my journey or whatever, that to me is success, because we've all been that person who needed to be inspired by someone else. And I think everyone has, people that they look up to, whatever field you're in, whether it's music, there's an artist that you look up to, or if you make films, there's a director who you look up to. We've all had that person in our life has kind of been that driving force, or helped us to continue on when we feel like we want to give up. So if I can, and if I have ever been that person for someone else, like that to me is like success. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah,
great answers, very selfless answers as well, to be honest with you. So in the past, when we've done our interviews and stuff like that, I would ask kind of similar questions, and often the response would be, look, I want to buy this
money,
house, but with the recent guests that we've had, to be fair, they've all been very, very similar answers to yourself, in the sense that it's not materialistic, it's more about an impact or a legacy which we can go on to, which I think essentially is much more important. And I think happiness is at the forefront of both of those things that you said, which happiness really should be the ultimate goal. Obviously you have 100%. To have things around you and support networks in place to be happy, but I think that really should be the number one goal for everyone. So yeah, great answers.
I'm glad you liked them.
Yeah, I asked this question the other day to Chris Jammer, whose episode which will have come out just before this, and I'm interested to see what you think. So firstly, do you want a family?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
So second question, which is the interesting part, what 3 values will you instill in your children?
Oh my God, that is such a good question. These questions are so good. I just have to, obviously, I think you take a lot from your parents, subconsciously or consciously.
Agreed.
I feel like, how you were raised, kind of, there's certain things that your parents will say, and, they'll never leave you. Like, you always remember certain things that they've told you, or ways that they parented you. So one thing that I would say I've really took from how my parents raised me was just, I think I mentioned it earlier, it's just, my kids will know, like, if there's something that you want to do, just go for it. Like, and
self-belief.
Yeah, believe in yourself. You can do anything. Like my mum would just say, you can do whatever you put your mind to. So that, like, just self-belief. I would just tell them to prioritize their happiness, because I feel like life's too short to be unhappy. Like, if you're doing something and you don't enjoy it, you've got a job that you don't, quit. And I will do, as long as I can see they're not being lazy, like, I will do whatever it takes to support them. Like, say if they say to me, Mum, this job is it's making me depressed, or it's doing this, I would just tell them, look, it's fine, quit, we'll figure it out. Like, and if I might have to support them financially for a period of time or whatever, like I say, as long as I can tell they're not just being lazy, like, your mental health and your happiness comes before anything. So I would just never want my kids to feel like they have to put themselves in certain situations like by force, because it's really not by force. Like, and I've learnt that the hard way. So yeah, I'd say self-belief, like, happiness comes first. And again, I would always make them aware of how selfless they are being. And it's like, I think in in life, a lot of the time we can focus on, okay, what's in it for me? Like, what can I get out of this situation? Like, if I take this opportunity, what's it going to do for me? And I think when I started realizing like a big change in my life, and like a lot of things started happening for me, is when I kind of started thinking, okay, what can I actually offer someone else, and how can what I'm doing like help someone else, or how can I, facilitate someone else? And that's really that really changed a lot for me in terms of like how I looked at my life, my career, and just how I treat people as well. It's like, okay, what can I actually offer? It's not all about take.
Yeah.
It's sometimes about what
Give.
can I give? So I'd say those three things I would want my kids to kind of focus on, I guess.
Great values.
Yeah.
Great values. I'll be sure to repost this in 5 years or something like that. Who knows? So.
And they're like, my mum said it from early.
No, thank you again for a great answer, and really inspirational one as well. So I mean, to kind of tie, I guess, the podcast up on a whole, so I did want to speak, I touched upon it earlier, about legacy. So firstly, I mean, just quickly, how important is legacy to you?
Do you know what? It's interesting. I feel like it's important because I feel like everyone was put here for a purpose. And I do feel like, there's people who were put here to, inspire other people, but then there's people who are put here to maybe teach people how not to be, because obviously, sometimes
that's a good way of looking
like,
at it.
Yeah, like, especially if you're like, say if you're a religious person, you might say, okay, well, why would God make these things happen? Or sorry, if you're not a religious person, like why if there's a God, why would he make this happen? Why would he make people die of cancer and all these things? And it's like, I think you have to really kind of take things as like everything is an experience, and you can learn from absolutely everything, so whether it's positive or negative. But I think in terms of the legacy thing, I think we was all put here for a reason, but at the same time it's like, not to be morbid, but like, we're all gonna die, and I think at the end of the day, all you can do is your best. And I think if you can't leave anything behind, like, that's particularly spectacular, like, just be a good person. Like, that's it. Like, just don't be an arsehole. Like, just, do you know what I mean? Like, if you can't, like, what do they say? If you can't say nothing nice, don't say anything at all. Like, do you get what I mean? It's not that deep. Like, we're all here for a very short time, and we're all gonna pass through, and whether you believe that you're gonna come back or not is your own personal thing. But I believe that we all come back in one way or another, like, and I think a lot of people, they'll say, I feel like I've been here before, and like I say, it depends what you believe in, doesn't it? But I think your time is your time. All you can do is your best, and you can't, no old person is going to come to the end of their life and sit there and be like, oh my god, like, I didn't do, you know what I mean? Like, most old people just like, they're just happy to make it to the next day, like, you know what I mean? Like, if they've got their little like microwave meal and whatever, like, and they're watching Countdown, like, they're just cool, innit? Like, so I think in a sense it's like, okay, do what you can. If you can make sure that every single day you're doing your best to maybe, like I say, either help someone or give back in some way, I think amazing. But we all know what it's like. We're all human. You can't do that every day. You can't be the perfect person. You can't give. Sometimes you need to take, because it's like, okay, I need a bit of love today, or I need help, you know what I mean? But I think when it comes down to it, like, just be happy, do what you can, do your best. That's all you can do. And I think if you end up leaving your mark, amazing. If you don't, like, it's okay. Like, do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah,
another great answer. So, I mean, that pretty much brings things.
That was a bit deep, that one.
No, it's good.
I was like, you're gonna come back. I want to come back as a dog, by the way.
Okay,
I've decided, because every dog
What
is
dog?
just so happy. What, like, breed? Or just one of them dogs that just, the ones that just always wagging their tail, like, like a cockapoo or something, bare energy, like, just like, they just look so happy, and I'm just like, nah, I'm coming back as a dog, because you've got it cushy. But belly rubs and food, like, what more could you want?
Okay, that's interesting. But right, okay, so what we're going to go on to is the final 2 questions that we ask every guest that comes on the podcast. So the first one is going to be, and you can look into that camera to give your answer.
Wait, which one? This one?
This one here.
Okay, yeah.
Who do you nominate to come on the podcast? So it can be anyone within the industry. So it could be like a label owner, it could be a stylist, a videographer, photographer, artist, literally anyone. Okay. So yeah, who do you want to nominate?
To do this. I know who I'm nominating though. I'm nominating Vanessa and Sally from Cactus City, because I feel like, stemming on from the conversation about women in music, if there's any women in music watching, or if any of the men watching or kind of intrigued by the conversation or just want to educate themselves more, they're the ladies to get on to talk about that. So okay, I nominate you.
There you go, perfect. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And the last question, so we're interested kind of about unanswered questions within the industry, and interested in creating projects to hopefully shed light on those unanswered questions or topics that need more light shed on them. So I think it might tie into your last answer, to be fair, but what is a topic within the industry or a question that you believe is unanswered, or something that you would like more attention given to?
Yep. Okay, I know exactly what I'm saying for this one. So obviously the women women in music thing from Sally and Vanessa, but I think a big thing within music is like, how do I make money? How do I monetize like my passion? And I think there's so many talented creatives, artists, people within the industry, journalists. There are so many things that we are expected to do for free. And especially when you're coming up, when you want to get in the industry. I was one of them. I was willing to do everything. Like, I would do anything for free. I just wanted to get in there. I wanted to meet people. I wanted to get my foot in the door. But there comes a time, and I've said this to so many people that I'm like really close with or who I work with, and I'm just like, you need to believe in yourself, in terms of, you need to understand that people need to respect you. If they like what you do and they want to work with you, they need to pay you. And it's just like, okay, well, do I feel comfortable charging? What is my price? There's so many questions. And I think money in so many industries, like money is such a taboo subject. For a lot of the time, I was on radio and things like that. People don't realize that, most radio stations, unless it's like a big national station, like, you are not getting paid. Like, more time you're actually paying the radio station to be on the station. Do you get what I mean? So a lot of people have always been shocked in the past to know, certain things that I was doing, and I was just like hustling, like just trying to, make it, and still figuring out for myself, okay, how am I going to make this a career? How am I actually going to pay my bills and survive off of this? And it's not easy. And it's like, I really, as well, going forward, I want to have these conversations and create these spaces to be like, no, do you know what, like, you deserve to charge for that, or that thing that you've been doing for 3 years for free, like, charge for it. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think it's like I said, there's so much like taboo around that subject, or even just not knowing, like, just the lack of education. How do I actually monetize what I'm doing? There's ways to do it. Anything can be monetized. Do you get what I mean? But it's just not knowing how. And that was one thing I said to myself when I started 1994. I was like, everybody is getting paid. No one is doing anything for free, because I've just had enough. Like, I kept seeing people who I know are just so talented and so good at what they do, and they just weren't being respected enough by someone saying, do you know what, I'm actually going to pay for your services. So that's one thing I said. I want to create more opportunities within the industry for people to earn money. Like, why do we work at the end of the day? Okay, we love it, but we've all got to eat, we've all got bills to pay, we've all got to survive. We all, like, I want to have a family one day. Like, I can't take my kids on holiday with no money. Like, do you get what I mean? So 100% money. I want to have conversations about that and shed light on that as well. So yeah,
I like that answer. I like that answer a lot. So who knows? We might delve into that and see what we can do. But amazing, honest, transparent, and knowledgeable episode. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
I hope I didn't talk too much.
That's the
feel
point.
like whenever I come on like interviews, I'm just talk. But someone enjoyed it. I know someone enjoyed it. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah.